Hello again. In this video, we will talk about the final examination for EAL, Stage 2, obviously. Now, you probably already know that at the end of Stage 2 EAL, you do have a final exam, and that final exam is worth 30% of your overall EAL score. Maybe like 4 or 5 years now, the EAL exam is an electronic examination that's taken online. It used to be on paper, but now it's online. And in this video, we will just take a look at the functions of the platform that you will be taking your online examination in, and we will also see a number of useful features and how you can use those features when you take your exam. Now, you can find on the SACE website, if you go to the EAL page, click on external assessment. Here you will have a number of past exams that you can use both for revision purposes, practice purposes, but also to familiarize yourself with the SEB. And the SEB stands for Safe Examination Browser. So it's basically a piece of software that you will take your examination in, and it is 95% similar or 100% visually similar to what we have here on the SACE website. So I have already opened the 2023 exam. And either you are on the SACE website or you are taking your real exam on the SEB, the first thing that you need to do is you have to do this audio test page. You have to make sure that your headphones are working properly and that you set the volume level at a comfortable level that's not too loud, neither too faint, so you can hear the listening texts clearly without hurting your ears. Which is why you have to tick these two boxes. The first one, I have set the volume, and the second one, I will only wear my headphones when listening to examination content. And then you hit agree, and the page will take a few seconds to load. Sometimes it can take more than 10 seconds. It really depends on the internet connectivity at your school, but there is really nothing you should worry about when it comes to internet connectivity because the system is smart enough. The system, so if you can see here on top, you will see the timer, the exam timer. So unlike other traditional exams, in electronic examination, each student have their own timer. So if you start your exam, let's say at 7:30 a.m., or at 8 o'clock, that's the time where your timer stops, and your exam ends when the timer ends here. So you will not have a supervisor or an invigilator who will tell you, okay, now you stop. No, it's all automated. It all happens automatically. So once the timer is up, once the time is up, the exam saves itself automatically and it locks itself, and you won't be able to add anything to your exam. So this is the first page, and here you have the instructions that you need to follow in the exam. I highly recommend that you take the time to read through the instructions, and just so you know what's going on, that this is the right exam for you, and that you know how many sections you will have, how many listening texts, and all the necessary detail. Now, there is something really important on this page, and in my opinion it is the most important element, which is this. So for section 1, you have to allow approximately 85 minutes, because again, no one will tell you when you need to switch from one section to the other. And in this exam, you can begin with any section. You can begin with the writing, you can begin with the speaking part, with the listening part, you can begin with the last question. You can follow any order you would like, but it is really important that you give yourself approximately 85 minutes for section 1 and approximately 75 minutes for section 2, and you really should stay within these times, because you don't want to, if you start with section 2, do not spend more than 75 minutes on it, because you will be wasting too much time basically, and you won't have enough time to complete the questions in section 1. Okay, so let's see the features and the functions. So basically, this is your zoom function where you can make things either bigger or smaller depending on what kind of computer you're using. You probably have had a chance to try the SEB during the practice window already, so you should be familiar with this. This is an option where you can highlight. So let's say, for example, we can highlight some elements in certain colors. We only have two colors, unfortunately. I wish they could add a third color, but we only have two. But two, again, like is plenty. And none of this is mandatory, by the way. So it's not like you must do this. No. And none of these highlights will be seen by the examiners anyway. So these are just for you, so you can organize your exam, so you can give yourself some kind of visual memory cues, so it becomes easier for you to locate certain ideas or certain words or certain opinions. You can, for example, use your own system. So you could say, I will use blue color to highlight all that is opinion, compared to yellow to highlight all that is factual. Or someone else can do blue for, let's say, positive ideas or ideas that agree with the topic and ideas that disagree with it. So each student can have their own system, but this is a really useful tool that I highly recommend students to not only use during the exam, but also use when they practice for the exam. And just, you have to practice it before you use it. That's all I'm gonna say. So the second thing is the scribble paper. I will talk about this one at length in a few minutes from now. But one thing to keep in mind is the examiners will not read and see what you write on the scribble paper. So nothing you write here will actually go to the examiners, to the markers of the exam, which means this is not the place to write the answers of the questions that you're receiving. And if you write answers here and you fail to write those answers or copy them into the answer box, you will lose everything, because the examiners will not be seeing what's on the scribble paper. So scribble paper can be used to take notes. I will show you what I think is the effective way to use the scribble paper in a few minutes. But again, just make sure, and you have to be aware that the examiners will not see what you write on the scribble paper. And then we have a small dictionary, and it's a very, very useful dictionary. It's an English, of course, dictionary. It doesn't have any other languages in it. And even though you have a dictionary here, you can still have a paper bilingual dictionary on the exam day that is still allowed in the rules. Now, I'm making this video in 2025. Maybe the rules will change in the future, so double check with your teachers and always see, for example, any updates or information on the SACE website. But as of now, we have this online dictionary on the SEB itself, but you can also have a bilingual dictionary that you can bring with you to the examination room. And there are some rules and conditions in terms of what state the dictionary should be in. You can also double check those with your teachers and SACE coordinators at your school. But again, you can have two dictionaries basically. Now, from my perspective as a teacher, I really think that if you're not fluent in using dictionaries, if you're not familiar with dictionary use, then it really doesn't help a lot to bring a dictionary to the examination room, because most of times you just end up wasting way too much time. Because for this exam, to be honest, you don't really need to understand every single word in the exam in order to have a B+ or an A-. No. And a B+ in this exam is a really, really good grade. So again, spending too much time trying to find words in a paper dictionary or using this one to make sure that you understand every single word in the entire exam isn't really how you should spend your time during this examination. So again, be cautious. Yes, we do have a dictionary in the app, and yes, you can bring a paper dictionary with you to the examination room, but be aware that time is very limited. And I know this is, it sounds like a really long exam, but it's not. The moment you start writing, you run out of time really, really quickly, and you really don't have any time to waste trying to locate or find definitions of certain words in a dictionary. The last function is the flag function, And basically, when you click on a flag, you have this tiny flag that appears on the, I'm not sure how to call this, maybe the index or something. And this is just, again, a visual cue, a reminder in case you haven't finished all questions in a section. So you put that flag in so you know that you have to go back to that page before you submit your examination and you leave the examination room. So let's now go and see question 1. Now, question 1, these are the listening questions. And you basically have a listening text and maybe 4 to 5 questions. The number can differ from exam to exam. And usually there are 10 marks in this question. Now, this is a really important section of this examination. Now, I know a lot of people can be a bit dismissive about this section, and they can say, oh, this is like the easiest part and all of that. And yeah, some of the questions here are more accessible than some of the other questions that we will see later in sections 2 and 3. However, this is the most important section in the exam, because in this section, you can write, sometimes for some questions, you can only write 1 or 2 words, literally a word, a single word, and you get 1 mark. And there is no other section in the exam where you can be awarded a mark simply by writing a single word. So in this exam, for example, question A, identify the day and time of departure and pickup for the school camp, departure day and time. So you will mention a day, so maybe like Friday or Thursday or Wednesday, and a time, 2 p.m., 2 o'clock. So that's like a word and a bunch of digits, and that's worth 1 mark. Same thing for the pickup day. This one, for example, excluding the environment list, the other 2 key areas in which students learn skills. So in this one, you can write 2 words and you have 2 marks. And there is no other section in the exam where you can get marks as easily as you can get them here. So this is why it is absolutely important that you do whatever it takes. You do your absolute best. You fight tooth and nail to make sure that you maximize the score that you get in section 1. So here we have the listening text, and there is something very important here, is that once we hit the play button, we can't pause, we can't rewind, and we can't go forward. And we can only listen to the text twice. So the moment you hit play, the listening starts, and then that's it. I can't pause, I can't move it forward, I can't rewind, I can't adjust the volume in case it's too loud or too faint, but that's about it. So you have to make sure two things that are absolutely essential. The first one, you must make sure that you never start the listening before reading all the questions, because you will not have time to listen and read and take notes and answer at the same time. Only after reading all the questions, making sure that you understand what you need to do, what kind of information that you have to locate, only then you click on play. The second thing that you have to keep in mind, it is, now they wrote note, I wish they wrote warning, because this is actually a warning. So changing or reloading pages, give me a second. So changing or reloading pages during audio playback will result in the loss of the current play. So the moment you hit play, if I go now and I click on go to page 2 to see question 2, and then I want to go back to question 1, I will find that I will not be able to resume the audio. And if I click again, then that is my second play, 2 out of 2. And then that's it. So if, I don't know, if I do something as reckless as switching pages again, so let's now go to see question 3, and then I will go back to question 1. So that's it, 2 out of 2. So I cannot listen to this again. That's it. That's it. And if you do this twice, then you won't be able to answer any of these questions and you lose 10 marks. So it's really, really, really important. A, you never hit the play button before reading all the questions and making sure that you know exactly what you need to do. The second thing, once you hit the play button, stay on that page. Do not switch between pages. Don't go see any other questions. Just stay focused, laser focused on the mission at hand until you finish it, and then you can go to the second pages. So now while listening, now I remember years and years before when we had the exams on paper, basically we would instruct students as they listen to take notes, and after finishing taking notes, then they can formulate their answers and write those answers in the answer sheet or in the place where the answer should be written in. But when it comes to the electronic examination, we have much more flexibility because I don't really need to take notes on the scribble paper. And with my students at least, I recommend them not to do so. I say, take your notes in the answer box directly. Listen and take notes at the same time. And when you're done listening, you can always go back and you can delete what you have written and you can write it again. You can refine, you can rephrase, you can check your spelling and check your check the accuracy of what you wrote. You can delete, modify, add, insert. You can do all of these things because this is what's really beautiful about the electronic examination. It gives us so many flexibilities that we won't be able to have if we would take the exams on paper like we used to. So why I personally recommend when it comes to listening 1 and listening 2 to not take notes on the scribble paper, because let's say, God forbids, the worst thing happens and you're taking notes, you're answering all of your answers in the scribble paper. So you do, for example, question 1 and you have all of the answer, and then you go question 2 and then you write your answer as well, and somehow time is up and your exam is submitted. Then everything on the scribble paper is automatically deleted and the markers will not be able to see them. So when your exam goes to the markers will think that you didn't answer anything because all of these will be blank. However, if we take our notes here directly, and I'm just like scrambling papers, scrambling notes, writing things up and down. Just again, so I'm not finalizing the answers. I'm just taking notes as I go. And let's say time is up and everything is submitted to the examiners. The markers will see the notes that you have taken. Now, you may not get a full mark for every question, but definitely the markers will reward what you have written depending on the accuracy of the notes that you have taken. So let's say, for example, you had spelling mistakes, you didn't write in full sentences, you were only using keywords. The markers will acknowledge that and you will be rewarded. And I think being rewarded, even though it's not a full mark, still is much, much, much better than having 0. Because anything we write on the scribble paper is automatically deleted once the exam is over. All right, so for question 1, I like to call this section listening comprehension because you have a listening text and all of the answers that you write in this section come from the listening text itself. And because it's a listening comprehension, so this is not the place to analyze things or to add your own opinion or to add your own interpretation. You basically need to write what they say the way they said it. That's all you have to do. And in this section here, when we see that we don't have any specific instructions requiring us to write in full sentences or in paragraphs. Such a thing is not written. So you can use bullet points if you would like. You can answer using keywords. That's completely fine. However, when we go to question 2, so when we go to question 2, when we read the top, it says read text 2, then answer question 2. Your answers must be in extended prose or paragraphs. So in this one, you really don't have a choice. We can't answer using keywords anymore. Every answer we write, it must be in a full sentence or sometimes even a paragraph. So for question A, for example, what is the purpose of text 2? Give one example from the text to support your answer. The answer should be a minimum of 2 sentences, minimum, sometimes even more. So that will be a topic sentence, and your topic sentence will give the answer to the question. So it would say, for example, the purpose of text 2 is to persuade or to inform or to entertain. And then your supporting sentences, they will provide the examples and the clarification needed for them. So you will basically end up writing a small paragraph going forward, because every question starting from question 2 requires the students to write in extended prose or paragraphs. So question 2, this is now in the e-examination, this is the infographic question, and you always have an infographic, and then you have maybe 2 to 3 questions that you have to answer that are related to the infographic. Now, in previous years, all infographics had something in common. So all of them had a visual component. So that visual component can be a photograph, can be a map, can be a drawing, can be, for example, the use of certain colors or design elements or motifs, but that visual component has already been there. And there was always a verbal component, a written component, and that written component would have a lot of literary devices. In the SACE program, we often call them persuasive techniques or emotive techniques. So in this instance, we have a title here. We have a bunch of, you can see this 99.9%. We have a number of bullet points. We have these ticks. So that's a visual component that indicate that these are some kind of advantages or pluses or positive points. So all basically in all previous exams, they always had the same things. There was always a visual component in the form of a photograph, drawing, image, map, something that's visual, and a verbal component that is either in short paragraphs, bullet points, titles, or isolated words or slogans, for example. Now, the SEB has a bunch of interesting features. So in this case, if I want to see the infographic in full, I can click on this thing, the full screen button, and the only thing I will be able to see is the infographic. And to close the full screen, I click on it again, and I can do the same thing for the questions. So, and I can still have open the scribble paper, and anything you write on the scribble paper is automatically saved until the exam is up, and then it will be automatically deleted too. So now, before we go to question 3, I want you to take a very careful look at the time. So now it is 2:19:58. So exactly at 2:19:50, I will click on question 3. 2:51:50. So now I'm clicking on question 3. So let's see, you can see now it's loading, and boom, it starts at 50 again. Now, this is a really cool thing in the SEB, because regardless of the speed of the internet, wherever you're taking this exam from, it doesn't affect how much time you have with the examination, because the loading time between one question and the other is not counted by the time by the counter that you have here. And this is great news. So if you switch between page 1 and page 2, if the student next to you somehow has really fast internet and they can switch between pages really quickly, but on your device, somehow the internet is slower, and to go from one page to the other takes something like 10 20 or even 30 seconds, that's fine, because that does not affect your total examination time, because the exam counter pauses when you're transitioning from one page to the other. And you can play with this, you can test it as much as you would like. I have tested this dozens and dozens of times and it never failed. So when we go now to question 3, this is also a listening, but this time the listening is more analytical. The questions are not just listening comprehension, but more like listening analysis. And the same rules and the same things that we have to be careful with in question 1 apply in question 3. So we can only listen to the text twice. The moment we hit play, we can't pause, we can't rewind, we can't go forward. And if you switch or change pages, you lose the current play and you will not be able to recover that play no matter what you do. So do not hit the play button until you read all the questions in full. And once you hit the play button, focus on the questions at hand. Do not switch pages no matter what. So for this question, for this part, the only piece of advice I will give you in this video, and I'll do my best to make more videos in which I explain question by question, and I will show you more samples and how you can answer them. But the only piece of advice that I will give you here. So if you take a look at the questions, we have question A, B, and C. These questions are all from text 3. But when it comes to question D, this is what I personally call the comparative analysis question. So in this question, you have to compare between text 2 and text 3. And you have to support your answer with evidence from both texts. This is really, really, really important. Not only because it's a 6 marks question, but it's quite challenging too, because now you have to write evidence, you have to provide evidence from the infographic, which is in question 2, and you have to provide evidence from the listening text, which is in question 3. So what do you need to do? My personal advice, what I advise all students is, before you hit the play button, you read all 4 questions. You make sure that you understand them, you understand what you need to do. But when you hit play for the first time, only focus on question A, B, and C, which are the questions that are only from the listening text, text 3. You can leave D to the second play. And during the first play, make sure that you have the ability to answer all 3 questions completely, 100% using one play only. Once you finish the first play, complete formulating your answers. Make sure that everything is written in extended prose or paragraphs. Make sure that you have covered all the necessary elements each question requires you to cover. And then review question D again. Review the infographic again, just to refresh your memory. Then go back to question 3 and hit play for the second and last time. But this time, your focus, 90 or 80% of your focus is on question D. And you can, if you have the flexibility and you were able to manage question D, you can also revisit A, B, and C. Maybe you can fill in some of the gaps that you missed, or maybe add or adjust or make some slightly adjustments. But whatever happens, you must make sure that you don't spend both plays only on questions A, B, and C. Because if you do that, you won't be able to perform really well on question D. And question D is a really, really important question. So in this exam, you can see question A is only 2 marks, question B is only 2 marks, question C is only 1 mark, but question D is a 6 marks question. So that's a very important question. And then we go to the last question of the exam, which is question 4. All right. So in this one, The question prompt is almost identical to all the other question prompts in all EAL exams. Every time you have a new topic, every time you have new reading passages, but you always need to write an extended written response of approximately 500 words in which you develop a point of view. And you always need to use reference information, ideas, opinions from the texts that are provided. So here, we have a bunch of useful features. So I can basically choose how many texts can appear on this section of the SEB. So if you want to just view one text at a time, you only select one text at a time. If you want to view all three of them at the same time, that you can scroll up and down between all three of them, that's also a possibility. We oftentimes with students is we say just select all of them, then click on this one to hide that side so you have more real estate for both your reading texts and the space where you write your answer. And you can just scroll up and down as much as you would like. If for some reason you want to have this in full screen, you can do that too. And you can have this one in full screen that you can do too. And you can always access the scribble paper here as well. And the highlighter are really handy in this section because, again, they can help you easily locate ideas when you are doing your research. So the moment you begin writing, you have this visual indication that can help you locate the information that you need for your written response. So this is a really big question. It is a 30 marks question. So again, we must make sure that we do our absolute best to get at least 15 or 20 marks. If you can even get more, you go for it. But this is something that we really have to nail well. And whatever you do, please make sure you don't leave this question empty. You don't want to spend too much time with question 1, 2, and 3, and by the time you come here, you only have 10 minutes left. That's not the case. So always remember, for question 1, 2, and 3, 85 minutes max. For question 4, 75 minutes max. I will be making more videos in which I will go through the questions in great details and give you more hints and advice on how you can prepare and how you can do this exam really well. But for now, you have a lot of great tools in the SEB. Use all of them to your advantage. Practice and practice and practice. And one thing before I go, I have seen all EAL exams since 2017 to 2024. And in every single one of them, the questions are 80% the same. It is very unlikely that in your future exams, the questions will be drastically different than the questions we've seen before. Now, unless if the curriculum changes in its entirety, but that's a different thing. But if you're taking the exam in 2025, 2026, 2027, it's very unlikely that you will have a brand new exam design that will shock you or surprise you on examination day. There will always be questions on persuasive techniques, questions on reliability and trustworthiness of texts, questions on, let's say, just the basic analysis tools, main idea, intended audience, intended purpose, context, and so on. So, good luck, fight, keep learning, keep studying, keep practicing, and I will see you again in a future video. Well, you will see me again. I'm just looking at my camera right now in a future video where I will be going through these questions one by one and show you a bunch of examples and samples. Peace.